Hi, everyone. Welcome to, as I mentioned, our first live stream of our Live, Laugh, Empower events. If I haven't met you yet, I am Lindsey Benton, the broker owner of Live, Laugh Denver Real Estate Group. We have a live audience here today. I'm so excited. And of course, none other than Nicole Rueth is going to be my first guest of one of these.
I'm very excited.
Because we love to chat.
We do.
And I think I talk even more than you.
You do.
I do. Every time we have to edit videos down, she's like, they need less. And I'm like, sorry, ma'am. Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about building wealth through real estate. It was kind of probably a blessing in disguise last week that we bumped it to this week with the snowstorm and everything. Just so we were able to regroup and kind of everyone get here. As Nicole mentioned, politics are a hot topic right now. We're going to stay away from the politics of it. I will share some resources and follow up, though. We were just talking about Logan Moshami,
yes, we were.
Who is my favorite person to listen to. If you have questions about where rates are going and why, he's your guy. I like to say he's nonpartisan. I would almost say he's anti-partisan.
He's anti-political.
Right, like he's anti.
Yep.
And he's a chart nerd. He calls himself Chart Daddy.
He does.
Which is interesting because I'm the real estate lady.
It's a little icky. Yeah, I don't know.
It is icky. No, I agree, but I do love him. Okay. So Nicole Rueth is a longtime friend of mine.
Yes.
And my lender.
Yeah. Who
I call when I go, oops, daisies. I know I said I wasn't going to buy anything, but I need to buy this. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Yeah. But we have her until 6. We have her for 26 more minutes.
We're fine.
So I want to make sure that I honor that because she is hosting a retreat tomorrow. I am. And she was up until 10 working on it. So when it was last week, it didn't feel like as much of a problem. So anyways, Nicole Rueth, can you tell us a little bit, one, about yourself, just in case they don't know, like how you got into lending, and then what your current portfolio is as an investor?
Yeah. So Nicole Rueth, I've been in mortgage lending for 23 years. You land in it accidentally because that's what happens. I was in corporate America for 10, running large scale consulting gigs, doing business reengineering. And then I took a couple years off to have 3 amazing little kids who are now young adults. And then I started just looking for a job. I called up a friend. I said, I just need to get off the floor. Like, take me away from my children and pay my babysitter. I'm good. So he did, and he happened to be in mortgage lending. So I ran his company for a while, and then one thing became another. I started originating about 9 years later. So I've been in the business for 23 years. It's been a long, long time coming. I was raised by a single mom. Not a unique story at all. Food stamps, again, not unique, bouncing from rental to rental. Not a unique story. I didn't really judge it. It was just part of what I experienced. When I bought my first house, I was finally settled. And then we had these 3 amazing kids. We'd moved to Colorado. We sold our first house for double what we paid for it. We paid a whopping $100,000 in Dallas, Texas.
She's older than she looks.
Yeah, a lot older than I look. And then we bought a house here in Evergreen, and I was good. And I met a gentleman, to make a long story short, at an investment club that I was working as a lender. And I met him, and I was going to look at real estate agents. He was looking for investors. He won. I bought a 4-plex for $300,000, which I thought that was a massive amount of money and an incredible amount of debt. And I was way over my head, and I went kicking and screaming. I still own that 4-plex that I bought for $300,000. It's now worth 1.5, and it's doing phenomenally well. And now I have 24 doors, 2 commercial buildings, and under contract on a 36-unit apartment building. Yes, and all 3 of my kids own a home. One owns 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that was a lot, right, guys? I think the biggest thing I hear from it as a through line, you did a really good job. It was way more concise. I'm not even going to tell my story. Take forever. The way I like dance around and can't.
And you like using a lot of words.
So many words.
Yes.
But what I hear from you is you took chances that you weren't for sure of. It wasn't modeled for you.
It was not modeled.
Right?
That's right.
Investing in real estate. You now own the home your mom lives in, or bought it for her. Or whatever
I bought it for her.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So now she's stabilized too. And what felt like so much money at the time now feels like so little.
It's
relatively speaking to be able to get a 4-plex for $300,000, right?
Yes.
And so what I hear from that is we kind of just have to start with where we are.
100%. And even when you're afraid, but you have to look forward. And that's what this one gentleman did for me. He kept meeting us. Like, we had probably 5 sit downs at a coffee shop during this process because I really wanted to back out at every contract opportunity. And he just kept leaning in. You have 3 little kids. This is what you need to be doing. And I really didn't get it. And I think it took me a couple of years to actually get it. And then be able to share it.
Yeah. And so we're both on a mission, right? We are on a mission to empower everyone with the tools that you can use to build wealth through real estate, and also take advantage of the tax incentives, especially that have to do with building wealth through real estate. So a brief part of my story, similarly, investing in real estate was not modeled for me. I will say, as a privilege, though, home ownership was modeled for me. And that is something that I think a lot of us don't know growing up. What's normal to us isn't normal to anyone else, right? And so that was modeled for me. So I never second guessed if I would own a home. I always thought I would. That was modeled. But I'm from a small town in Illinois, and average home prices are like 80. I think they're still like in the 80s. I don't know anymore. It doesn't matter. So there's not a lot of movement, right, of people coming in and out, nor of values. And so when I started wanting to buy a house here when I was 22, my parents were like, what are you doing? And I bought that condo. And I remember going from, and this is the kind of where we'll stop with my story, but I bought a condo when I was 22. My best friend, Jenny Stetler, who I talk about all the time, she was buying a condo and we had the same job. So like, duh, I'll buy one too. She's doing it, I'm doing it, same job. And I went from paying $600 a month for a studio apartment to, I got qualified. It was 2005. I got qualified for 3 times the amount I spent, right? This was as we're leading up to what ended up being the Great Recession. Thankfully, I went to a bank and I got a FHA loan, and I bought it with my 3% down, 3.5% down. I went running across the street, all the things. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I realized after the HOA and all of that, my monthly payment went from $600 to $1,350. Or $1,385. It was a lot. It was a huge jump.
That's big.
And my priority at that point was mainly happy hour. So I was like, how am I ever going to afford happy hour if I have to pay so much for a house? And so I experienced that feeling of being house poor, because it was a huge change for me. And which is funny because they qualified me for way more. But what I always tell people is I was at 5.875 was my interest rate at the time. No one talked about interest rates then.
Nobody did.
So that just started in 2020.
Yes.
Where everyone talks about them.
Obsessed.
But it was hard. And I tell this often, and now I feel like it's harder to get away with, but one of the tricks I would use when I was balancing too many bills is I would send a check but not sign it. We don't get to use check. Yeah, I know. It works. And then if you don't do it frequently, you just call and go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'll just send it now. And then you can wait till your next pay period comes. So I always knew, you guys, never for my mortgage, always for car payments. You guys will give anyone a car. Oh, does not everyone do this? Like, did I not? Has no one ever, okay, has literally no one else done this? Okay, well, I'm sorry, because now no one uses checks. So now I'm just sad for you. Anyway, so it would just buy you like a week. It wasn't like I wasn't going to pay it, but then that way I still had money for my lifestyle.
I think it was the wash.
Everything shouldn't be due on the first of the month. Anyways, I digress. But I always knew pay your mortgage first. Whatever you need to do, pay your mortgage first. I stopped getting pedicures. I stopped going to happy hour as much. We started having at-home ones because I was living in this house that I was so proud to show off to my friends and was so excited to welcome them to. And it changed my whole approach to it. I then didn't buy my next home until 2013. So I rode it for a while, right? And I thought it would never be above 200. Like, I bought it for 178. Yeah. It's a condo at 26th and Stout. I still own it. I plan fully to retire into it. And I was like, there's no way it'll ever go over 200, but that's okay. I love it. It's worth like 350 now or whatever, right? And honestly, it doesn't even matter what it's worth because it's grown in its value the same way that cost of living has grown, right? And so that's the coolest thing for me is that as the cost of living is going up, so is the rent, and therefore so is my cash flow.
Agreed.
So let's lean into that a little bit with why is it so financially different to invest in real estate than in other things?
Yeah.
The power of it.
So I'm having a ton of conversations, as you guys can imagine, as real estate has gotten expensive, property taxes, insurance, HOAs, and crypto is taking off, and the stock market is doing well. And you'd have any anticipation that that might continue through this next administration, although we're not talking politics. But given that, it's hard to pull somebody back from that. It's like, I can't tell you how many phones I've had put in my face. Have you seen what the crypto market is doing? Look at my account. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done looking at your crypto accounts. Everybody's really excited about it.
I don't want to see yours. I won't show you mine. Like, calm down. Yes.
Exactly.
Some people get unsolicited other picks, but Nicole gets unsolicited crypto updates. Yeah. I mean, that tracks for so many reasons. So many reasons. I'll tell Peter to send you something else.
Please. So my head went. Anyway.
That's her husband.
Other picks.
That's your husband, not the gentleman she met. Did anyone else think she was going to be like, and then we fell in love and he had all this real estate and I married rich? I know. We all have our regrets. No. But anyways, it's not. She stayed with the same guy. Peter. So crypto bros.
The crypto bros. So looking at what is 10 years from now, what is 15, 20 years from now, that's where we start getting into a conversation where it's meaningful to say, I understand that the crypto market is supposed to continue to explode right now. And I understand the stock market feels like it's never going to come back down again. But at some time, at some point, we have volatility in both of those markets. We've seen it consistently and constantly. And so where are you going to be is all of your holdings in a thing that is volatile beyond your control? And can you do anything else with it? So what if you scraped off some of that and you used it as a down payment? And some of these kids too, they want to have a certain lifestyle. So they're like, well, I can't afford where I want to live, where I'm renting. And renting is cheaper than a mortgage right now. I'm like, well, what would it look like if you moved into a place that maybe you don't want to live full time or forever, and you bought it as a primary home, you lived in it for a year or as close as you could force yourself to do, and then you move back into an apartment living, and you're using the capitalization of real estate. So often I love to get into the conversations and go, I just want you to look beyond this year. Can we just imagine what it looks like and where you're at? You're 23, you're 28, you're 35. What does 40 look like? What does 50 look like? Can you plan ahead? Because nobody taught me that. I didn't buy my first investment until I was 40 years old. So nobody taught me that in my 20s, in my 30s, and it just so happened one guy stood beside me when I was 40. And I'm like, damn it, if I could help somebody figure that out at 20 or 30 or even 40 or 50. I've had clients that are 60, 65, 70 years old going, I just need to start thinking about my kids, my grandkids. Can you help me because I don't have enough saved? So we are constantly looking at what's beyond that. So the tax benefits, clearly. For a while, not so much, because mostly everybody takes your standard deduction and you're not going to break through that with a primary home. But at some point you might, especially if you start turning it into a rental. It's got options. You can house hack. You can rent out the garage. You can rent out the basement. Like, there's so many options. And now the new ADU law just got passed. We're starting in July. No HOA can tell you no. No municipality can tell you no. You can build an ADU and you can buy them on Amazon for $59,000, maybe even $19,000 by the time we get done with this. So all of these things are changing, giving you access to income opportunities. What if you haven't saved enough? What if you need a residual income? Or what if you need to capitalize on the equity? So if you're thinking of this kid who wants to live lifestyle and he wants to live downtown or somewhere close thereof, but he can't quite afford to own there, can he buy someplace else that tenants are paying down the mortgage, allowing that property to appreciate over time, building that equity cushion, and giving him access to options? So you ride the crypto roller coaster and you allow it to do its thing, and maybe you make a ton of money, maybe you don't, maybe you lose it all. But over here, you still have this thing that's consistently trekking along like a just slow moving train on the tracks. Just 5% every year, it's just trekking along. But it's not on the 3% you put down, it's on the 100% of the value. So you put $15,000 down, but you got a $500,000 value that's going up by 5%. And now in 10 years, I have the option to pull out, cash out, refinance tax-free and pay for my kids' college, or pull it out again 10, 15 years later after my kid wants to start their own law firm, or I want to take a cruise, or I want to do something, or I want to reinvest for my retirement.
Did you guys get all this?
Yeah.
Okay, so I may talk a lot, but you talk faster.
Okay.
So I want to go back to a couple points you made real quick, if you don't mind,
Please.
Before we're clearly opening Gabby's law firm. I hear you. We all know that's
I'm doing
Gabby's.
it. She's going to make.
She has no choice.
Yeah, she's going to take care of me.
So talk more about putting 3% down but getting the appreciation on 100%, because that's my favorite thing about real estate. And like what I think we don't always educate on is we talk a lot about how stocks go way up and then they're just volatile, to your point. Like they're volatile, they go up. But if you put $15,000 in the stock market or in crypto or in commodities or whatever it is, it's the $15,000 that's going up and down.
Yes.
Whereas if you put $15,000 in a $500,000 home, you get the appreciation on the $500,000. And I think that's what needs to be explained at the high school level to understand the difference. And to your point, it doesn't mean you don't diversify. Agreed. You can have other stuff, but putting it into real estate, your money works harder for you.
And so we use often a $30,000 example because it's Gabby's house. So we help Gabby buy a house at $525,000 by Denver University. She's renting out 5 bedrooms at $1,000 a room. And her mortgage is something like $2,750, and she's making $5,000. So she's crushing. It's paying for her apartment in Boston. I was about to say Boulder, and she's not there.
No, she's not there. She's in Boston. You would see her so much more.
I don't want to say it. But so it's a massive win. So the $525,000 home, if you take it over a 20-year period, that can be worth over $1 million. Like people are like, there's no way that house can be worth $1 million. And I'm like, 20 years ago, somebody paid $30,000, and I just got robbed. I paid $525,000. It's going to be worth $1 million. Now, there are some products like condos that might have an issue with appreciating that high, or some areas that don't appreciate. And there's certainly areas across the country that appreciate even less. But the Denver market consistently goes up about 5%, especially if it's a single family home that owns land. Versus that $30,000, if she had put it in the stock market at 7%, 10 or 20 years, that's less than $200,000, which is fantastic. You just can't retire on that. But I can retire on $1 million.
No.
All right. Well, I can start.
I can get closer to it.
Get closer to it.
Yeah, a couple million.
I just need like 3 homes then.
Well, you're never going to retire, so it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Okay. Okay. That example, love, Gabby. And then the other thing you were getting to is then you could just use it, pay for college. And then you went all, So I want to talk a little bit about that too. Okay. So if you have something in a 401k or an IRA or even the stock market, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You can't take it out without penalty.
Well, but even if you can, as you withdraw it, its value goes down, right? Unless you withdraw it at what everybody says is the 4% rule, that you're not supposed to take more than 4% out so that it can continue to grow. Yes, it's a thing.
You're never supposed to take 4% out of what? Any
investment? Like your stock market account, like your retirement account. Like you're supposed to moderate it so it continues to grow.
Got it.
But in that case, as I pull it out, the value goes down, so its appreciating opportunity goes down. With real estate, I'm pulling out rental income every single month, which, yes, I'm going to get taxed on, but I'm going to write off depreciation. I'm going to write off maintenance and management. I'm going to write off a bunch of it before I get taxed. Or I could do a cash out refinance as long as I still qualify, right? Assuming I'm working or I have enough rentals. And that's completely tax-free. That's not a taxable event. So I could take a home, let's just say Gabby's home, because we've been talking about it. She bought it when she was 21. And say in 20 years, she'll be 41. So at that age, she'll be married and she'll probably have a kid or two.
Don't do that to her. Don't project this onto her. Let her do it. Her body, her choice, Nicole.
My child.
So anyways, we'll see. You have boys for that. They'll do it.
They're never getting married.
I know.
I'm relying on Gabby.
So back to if Gabby opts to get married and have children. It's her choice still now.
Not her choice.
In Colorado.
Yeah, in Colorado.
Jesus, I don't want to get political, but if you're starting to put babies in her, Jesus. Keep going.
She could go with Elon Musk. He's giving it away.
Oh, that's called rape. So that's called threatening sexual assault.
I just, the opportunity's there. Anyway, I am kidding.
Okay, back to it. Goodness.
I can't help but go political.
Neither of us even drink anymore. Can you imagine when we had the tequila shots going that night? Yikes. Okay.
Yes. So
we're
21.
Out money.
Let's go back.
Yes.
Yes.
So she's 41 and she just wants a really nice house because she loves herself and she loves everything she gets to do with it.
Yes. All by herself.
42.
She's alone.
And she's the happiest she's ever been. She's not lonely. She has a nice suitor. She's great.
She's married. She has 2 kids.
so that she could have full autonomy.
Couple dogs right next door to mom. Yep.
That's what that ADU is for.
That is
She can put your ass in the ADU.
She can put my ass in the ADU.
So anyways, let's say she wants to sell that house.
Yes.
Or borrow against it. What are her options then? Because it's worth $1 million now.
It's worth $1 million now. It's worth $1 million.
And she's paid down.
At this point,
she's borrowed against it a lot for investments.
She could have.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's assume she didn't for a moment. Right? So if she's got something that's fully paid off or really close to being paid off, she could sell it. But then she'd have capital gains. She could 1031 exchange it, which allows you to just kind of move the capital gains from shell to shell. Or you could do a cash out refinance and pull up all the way up to 75 to 80% equity and have no taxable event. And she could go do a thing. She could either reinvest, she could start a business, she could buy the incredible primary home that she wants for her kids next to the school, whatever. It's still going there. And then the idea being then she's 41, she's 61. The house has been paid off again. Right now she's 61. Her kids are in college. Her kids are starting to get married or not. And she's looking at being able to tap into that equity again and be able to continue to supply those needs, right? And then maybe she's 81, she's done, she sells it off, she takes the capital gains hit, or she gives it to her kids and she's able to roll it into a trust. They get a step up in value, meaning they pick up an asset upon her death. I am not going fast. I slow down. And now that house is worth, $2 million.
$2 million, yep.
And it easily is, and the kids
Okay, so we're going to go back to some tactics you talked about, which is the 1031 exchange.
Yes.
So I'm going to explain it to you guys. As you can tell, Nicole's operates at a different level than I do in so many ways. So many ways. But the 1031 exchange is the tax code for being able to sell a rental and take the proceeds from the rental into the next. Which is important to know that it's the step up proceeds. It's the basis can be adjusted, right? So if you buy a house for $500,000 and you put $200 into it and then you sell it for $1 million, your cap gains on that is $300,000, not $500 or whatever after they put that. Yeah, so that's important to know. But paying capital gains on $300,000 can vary depending upon what the tax code says. So if you take, as of now, the 1031 exchange allows you to take that money, put it into the exchange, and then within a certain amount of time, put it into an investment that's of similar style, similar kind, and as much or more. That's a normal person. Didn't I do good?
You did fantastic.
Thank you. And I have leveraged that.
Yeah.
I sold a single family home and leveraged it into a fourplex, which is now my strongest rental property. And it was fun. It was fun. It was a blast, you guys. And there's where I nerd out. But it was a good opportunity to go from a higher end rental property that has one tenant to a fourplex that then the risk is diversified. So let's talk a little bit. Let's have that lead us to the kind of discussion of the different types of investment properties. So I think that with this data, we've convinced everybody they should at least own real estate.
I would think so.
And just to summarize, I mean, Gabby now has millions of dollars and is happily married with children and dogs.
And a high-powered attorney with her own firm.
Well, has her own firm. I can't wait to hear what Elijah and Caleb are up to. Meanwhile, do you see how I'm not projecting my hopes and wants on my son?
You be you. I'm good.
I know, right? Yeah. I've done a little more Brene Brown work. That is where our age shows up the most, isn't it?
It is.
With this empathy and vulnerability thing that you're like, Jesus, Lindsay, can we stop?
I don't know what to do with you.
So,
and then
so one of the things to consider, and you touched on this a little bit, is it used to be, and now there are some hacks to where it's not the case. It used to be you're making investments based on wanting appreciation or cash flow. You pick one or the other. And then when Airbnb and short-term rental first came out, people were making hand over fist and in appreciating areas. The government took care of it, right? At the local level, at the state level, wherever it is. We all know with the short-term rental regulations that the hotels were upset, right? Because they're not getting the tax, blah, 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 all the things, right? Lodging tax is the word I was looking for. So assuming not another anomaly like that comes along, you're typically investing either for that appreciation or for cash flow. And I'm often asking clients, what's your priority now? And it really depends on where you're at in life, what your goals are. And so similar to anything in real estate, there's no one size fits all. But for the example of Denver's pretty expensive. And so we talked about this gentleman who just like wanted the same lifestyle. Well, now we're going to talk about this really smart lady who is like, I am good living where I'm living in Denver, and that may be that I own the home or it may be that I rent the home, but I want to make some investments in some areas that'll cash flow for me because that's my priority now. I got to find financial freedom. Yeah. And so we work with people across the country.
Right.
And there's areas, and you can kind of pick out the areas that'll be best for it. And they're usually not the areas that are going to appreciate, right? So there's not a lot of changes there, but you can get a good cash flow. And one of those targeted areas is around military bases, right? So you have this very captive audience. You have a stipend being paid. Home prices, for example, in Little Rock, Arkansas, one of my girlfriends down there is selling, or she owns a RE/MAX office down there, and you can get single family homes for $150,000.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, it's a little bit easier to buy that as an investment property than it is to try and buy $1 million investment property, right? So that is one of the strategies in diversifying the location of it.
Right.
And those are really talking more about the long-term rentals, right? So in Denver, when you're investing, you're banking on appreciation more than anything. And part of that's because of our market, which we can talk about too.
Yeah.
But thinking about it from a long-term standpoint. So when you think of a rental, a lot of times people think 12 months, right? Because most of us have lived in 12-month rentals at some point in our life. There's other alternatives. So that's considered long-term, anything that's over 6 months. Mid-term is anything between 31 days and 6 months. Some people say it's between 31 days and 12 months. So, you get the idea. And then short-term is anything under 30 days. So I would say now mid-term, which is kind of corporate housing,
right,
often called that, furnished rentals, has become the latest, I would say, hack, if you will, of use, right? And you can do it within your own walls, or you can do it.
Well, people were pushed that way due to the regulation.
Well, yes, due to the regulation, yeah. But people will pay way more. Do you have water? You good?
I do. I know.
Do you need anything? Cheers.
No, cheers. Hi. Okay.
But people will pay a lot more in a temporary situation, right? And so people are capitalizing on that. And then also, obviously, with the way that the pandemic changed things, people are able to work more remotely. We're seeing a lot of traveling nurses too. And so that has kept demand for furnished options pretty high. And people are paying more for it. I think short-term's hard.
Well, it just takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. But if you're into it, you can still make money depending on where you go. Whenever you can split up the whole into parts, you'll always make more money. Whether it's room rentals, which all three of my kids still do, and they just put it up on Zillow, to be honest. Like, it's not hard to find roommates. Room rentals, if you can parse out the garage. Caleb's last house that he bought, it was a single family home, and we split it into 2 units. So the back door goes straight to the stairs, which goes to the basement. So we just locked off the doorway to the kitchen. So whenever you can split something up, you'll always make more than renting out the whole house. So there's opportunities if you have different goggles on, looking for how can I capitalize on the appreciating market that Denver is and create cash flow. Because we used to be a cash flow and appreciation story, and we're just not that anymore because of how high prices are. So you have to be creative. If somebody goes, I'm just looking for a house and I'm going to rent it out as a house, I'm going to be like, you can break even, which is not a bad place to be. I wouldn't put myself in a negative position, but as long as you're breaking even and the tenants are paying down your mortgage and it's appreciating, it's a really strong long-term solution. Because while I'm a fan of investing out of state, I also talk about it with caution. I've had plenty of stories where it wasn't being managed well, nobody was overseeing it, where the wiring was ripped out, where the HVAC unit was stolen, where it was flooded and it took a month to figure it out. So those are things that you have to have a strong central system around you if you're going to invest out of state and chase the cash flow. I'm not opposed to it. We're licensed in 40 states and we help a ton of people.
Yeah.
Just have a network.
I'm all talk. I like to just go see them. I need to go see the properties.
Yes.
So I hear you. It's an option. It's not one I've leveraged yet. I'm too nervous. right? Like I like real estate because I can actually touch it.
Yeah.
And so it's the same idea. So I want to be able to go see it. And then actually never go see it and pay a property manager to do it instead. But the idea is that I could go see it at any time. I could at any time.
Yes. Agreed.
Drive there without, I want to break for a second, see if we have any questions. Nick waved. Do you have a question online, Nick, or were you giving me the time check? Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Okay, you're nominating me. I was asking Allison, as young people, I think it's hard to think about super long term. I feel like this has to be a long term or should be a long term perspective. And then my other question to Allison was, how much should you be putting down? I hear y'all saying like 3%, but should it be more than that? Can you give some guidance?
Yeah.
So if you put 20% down, you won't have mortgage insurance. And a lot of people just go there. That's like their first thought, well, I have to put 20% down. My parents told me I needed to put 20% down, or that's what I've heard. It is, I understand the logic, but often if somebody is sitting and waiting in savings for that 20%, you're allowing the market to kind of continue without you. So it's hard to catch up with the market while you're sitting on the sidelines trying to save 20%. Now, if you have it, put it down. Or think strategically. So it's really good when you're talking about real estate to have a long-term goal, to say, okay, this isn't a home that we're going to want to live in 2 years. So do we buy a really great first rental that we happen to move into, because I can't think about a house that I want to live in 10 years from now because I'm just not in that place in my life. So then you're buying something that you know you're going to move out, and you start looking at that property a little bit different. So then you just want to also make sure, will the future rents cover the mortgage with only 3 or 5% down versus a little bit more down? So I think with a little extra thought and pencil and paper, you can kind of decide what path feels the best. But getting into a home and allowing it to appreciate and not missing that beat because it's moving so fast, especially if and when rates drop. We already saw when rates went from 7.1 to 6.1, a massive pickup in the market. There's a lot of demand sitting there waiting to get in. Now, some of that demand has moved over to renting because it's just gotten inexpensive, but some of that demand is still waiting to come back in the market, which will push up prices and help you in the house that you choose to buy today appreciate.
So, Nicole, can you speak to, if you already are a homeowner and you're just simply looking to invest, that's a little different financial approach on the lending side.
Do you want to speak to like a straight rental versus a second home? Because there's benefits to that too.
They own a home.
Yep.
And so they would be buying an investment home instead of moving into it.
Got it. So if you're buying an investment home, you are required to put a minimum of 15% down as a single unit home. And it could have like a mother-in-law suite downstairs, like all that stuff. I've had a lot of people ask, well, there's rental income. Can I use it? If it's legally a single unit, it's a single unit. You're required to put a minimum of 15% down. If it's any kind of multi-unit, maybe you found a duplex that would make a great rental property, that's a minimum of 25% down. Now, you can buy a second home, especially if you want to Airbnb. Like if you want a short-term rent and you want to buy a house in some resort area that you've got some family and it feels good to you, you got a network, I'm helping somebody right now buy right on a lake in Georgia, and he's going to rent it out and that kind of thing. So he's buying it as a second home. The interest rates are a little bit higher. Second homes and investments are together. They're a little bit higher than primary home interest rates. There's usually about a 0.75% interest rate spread between the two. So your interest rate's gonna be a little bit higher as a second home, but you're only required to put 10% down. But it can't be right next door. It literally has to be 100 miles away, or it has to be on a lake, or it has to be a condo downtown, or it has to be a mountain. So it has to have a logic behind being a second home. Or like we were talking about, if you're buying for a family member, it changes. But you guys, it's not necessarily kids. It might be a parent that you're looking at having your parents be safe there, and then maybe that turns into a rental. You can do that as a primary home. There's a carve out in the guidelines that says you can buy a home for a parent with 5% down, or as little as 5% down with primary home interest rates.
I think too, from a long-term standpoint, because your first question was like if we're not really thinking really long-term about it, or what was the first question again?
Yeah,
Sorry.
The question was like, I think we're struggling to think long-term about buying an investment property and knowing like, should we be thinking only doing that if we know we can hold it for X amount of time? Or like, hey, yeah, you could buy an investment property and say like if you want or need to sell it in 5 years, like it's still a good decision. I think that
Yeah.
I'm just curious on like thinking about an investment property and like the duration you
The duration, yeah. No, I think I'll just give kind of my perspective on it. I think real estate, the reason I like it so much, and I'm this interesting mix of aesthetic, pragmatic. She's completely pragmatic. So I go with my gut on a lot of things.
I think that was rude, but I'm not sure.
Nope, it was just yeah, no, I can tell you don't need to feel anything about that. So you're good. Yeah, you're safe. You're safe. You're good. You don't need to feel anything. Anyways, I think the biggest challenge we see in life, so then I'm gonna get life coachy.
Yes.
So why Nicole gets bored. Is how do we have fun today and still plan for tomorrow, right? Like how do we make the most of the life we're living, but also still make decisions that are gonna benefit us in the future? Because the truth is none of us know, right? So I don't wanna plan to be like a really wealthy 70-year-old and then not make it, right? And not to be morbid or whatever. And then also we don't know what's gonna happen in the short term. So if I'm putting all of my money into an asset that I can't access till I'm 65 or without penalty, then I'm not necessarily able to bank on that, right? And so I think to your question of real estate, we got to put pencil to paper on it of how long is it going to make for you, how long will you need to keep it for it to make sense to then sell it? And I think that one of the challenges you have as owning your home and being happy in it and thinking you're going to be there for another, how many years? Oh, yes, marriage counseling. Okay. How many do you think you'll be in there? 30 more years. Yeah. 10. Okay. So probably somewhere around 7.
Yeah.
So it'll be about 7. Allison, plan on them about 4 to 5 years from now going, maybe I need to, yeah. So you just don't know, right? And I think too, like a lot of people come to us when they're first pregnant or when they're in like a big life change. And a lot of times we're like, just buckle down for a second because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's going to be the priority for where you want to live, right? So I would say that looking at investments now of how can we invest in something that's going to make sense for us to put our money in now? And if we need to borrow against it or leverage it in the future, we'll have the option. And if we sell it, the profit will make sense, right? And those are the things you're going to want to evaluate. Real estate will always make sense to own so long as you're not forced to sell it. And I know that sounds like duh, right? But you only lose money if you sell high. Nope. I always do this wrong.
The
It's
other
like
way.
the most,
Buy high.
It's
Sell
I'm
low.
tired.
It's okay.
Are you tired?
I'm not. I'm good.
Okay, I'm gonna take a nap later.
Okay.
And go to sleep. Anyways, as long as you don't sell low, it's the same with stocks, right? Like you only lose when you pull out. That's a different conversation too, Allison. I couldn't say it because you're sitting there. You're a nightmare. So that's the only time you're really losing the money in it, right? And so then you can evaluate it. I think you talked about doing selling it, taking proceeds if it's your primary. There's a great tax benefit there. And you mentioned pulling out a second on it.
Yep.
I'm sorry, you said a refi, cash out refi.
I did a cash out refi. You could do.
I've also used HELOCs, so home equity lines of credit on my properties to have a down payment because I was absolutely not going to buy something that year and then had to. I had no choice. I needed it. And so you can leverage, it is somewhat like the game of Monopoly, which I think why we're so passionate about getting people into their first spot.
Yes.
Because none of it happens if you don't get into your first. So you guys already took that step. So that's awesome. And then now it's where do we want to put it? Because let's say that you do buy an investment property that does well for you guys. It's a second home, but it's also an investment for you. And then you decide you want to actually liquidate that to buy a new primary or whatever. Like once you own, you have the power and you have the choice. And before you own, you don't. And that I think is where a lot of my passion comes from too, on the aesthetic side. And like, as dumb as it is, when people are like, you can paint the walls. It's like, well, no shit, you can paint the walls. But it's true. Like you get to make it your own, right? Yeah. And so that's always gonna be the aesthetic side of it. And so when you decide what you need next, you can go on to do it. But yeah, the leveraging one to buy the next is how you end up building. A lot of times. HELOCs are good short-term solutions.
Yeah.
Or for me, anything. I'm just like always like, let's do another one. Let's buy more things.
I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you follow it?
I did.
Okay. I
did.
feel like I wasn't landing the plane.
Yeah, it was a little spinny, but it's all right.
Whew, wasn't it though?
I mean, I don't think you don't tiptoe into real estate. I mean, because it can get really expensive if you make the wrong choice. And if you're trying to decide and you feel like it doesn't feel right yet, then you just wait. Like, you don't want to. I have had plenty of people come and go, I had to sell quickly. This happened. I didn't, so you don't tiptoe into it. You know that what is your break even? It's 3 years, it's 4 years, it's 5 years. Yep. Can my rents really cover my mortgage payment with the amount that I have to be able to put down at today's interest rates and today's prices? And then if it all looks good and I can cover it and I can afford to put that down payment and I can justify doing this for at least 5 years or 3 years or whatever that break-even point is, then I think we will say it's probably one of the best moves you can make. But obviously we're a little bit prejudiced in that regard. But I will say it is a fantastic long-term option builder.
We are not prejudiced. I don't want that sound
okay.
Right. We are biased.
What is it? Bias.
Yeah.
Is that
Towards
the right
real
word
estate.
now? Yeah.
No, I mean,
Okay,
when we're
fine.
talking about an investment,
Yes, I get
it's
that.
bias
No,
versus prejudice.
I understand that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. My apologies.
Yeah, I'm also the PC police with her, and I don't even mean to be. It's one of those things, like, you never hear somebody go like, ugh, wish I would have waited another 20 years to buy a house, right? Same with investments, right? So that's the tricky part. Sorry, I feel like I don't even know which side who's on which, but you guys are not going to live in there for 30 more years.
Yeah.
I got to tell you that much. And if you want me to have more of a talk with him about that, I can, ma'am. But we know that's not happening. While we've still got you, because now it's 6:45, because you said it's fine.
It is
so
fine.
then I'm just going to let you leave right at 7.
totally
and
fine.
not let you stay and chat,
Okay.
because you will. Yeah. We're going to send out follow-up with a link to book a call with the Rueth team.
Yes.
Obviously, follow up for us. We'll send out a recording of this. I can't even wait to find out what all we talked about. I always just talk. I was born this way. So the REITs.
Yes.
I know very little about that.
Yes.
And does that have anything to do with the 36 unit you're working on right now? Or is that on your own?
No, it's not on my own.
Okay.
It's with we put together a fund.
There you go.
Yes.
So can you speak to that option? Because I think that we're going to see more people going that way.
I do too.
Okay.
I do too. And a lot of people already are. So a REIT is a real estate investment trust, which is a little bit different than just putting together a fund. But they can be seen as overlapping. And I know you can even go online. And I know Bezos has a real estate fund that you can get involved in. And a number of other ones are
I feel like I'm already involved enough with my Amazon orders. And I just, if anyone wants to perform an intervention, I got it. Like, I'm available. It's bad. Okay, keep going.
I ordered Q-tips this morning, and just Q-tips. I got Q-tips coming,
It's
and
fucking ridiculous.
they should be there by the time I get home because it's same-day delivery.
We're the problem. It's us. 100%. She has no care. She doesn't even care. That's my favorite. I'm not going to admit that I ordered 3 pairs of shoes to see which one's going to fit tonight for the event tomorrow. I get it.
Yes, I shouldn't be sharing.
So, anyways, we're not going to get. We're not going to go to Jeff Bezos for this.
Yes.
And I think that that's part of it, right? It's like that to me, like when it's really big like that, feels to me really uncertain. However, we're seeing more of this like local smaller scale option happening too. So talk about that, what you're doing.
So there are people that are professionals in the industry that are looking for the opportunities. And when they find them, if they're in a position to be able to jump on them, like this one, it's a great example. And there's probably 100 other real estate professionals in the Denver market who are looking for these opportunities on an ongoing basis. But if we had a 36-unit apartment building, it's 3 buildings, 36 units, come on the market. We were given the opportunity before it really went public to see if we wanted to get it under contract. We got it under contract, and then we started a fund. We put together all of the legal paperwork to start a fund so investors can come in and can invest $25,000, $50,000, $500,000, and then have part of this. So we're buying an investment building for $5.775 million. In 5 years, it will be worth 11 to 11.5 for a lot of reasons that I can go into. But really, you're seeing that coming up where people that are knee deep, rolling up their sleeves, finding the right opportunity. If you know them, like them, trust them, if you know what their moral compass is, what their acumen is for investing, how good are they at that as far as their track record or how long they've been in the industry, and you believe in them to have a good chooser, right? It's like, is my chooser broken or is it working? Am I finding those properties? Huh?
It's your picker.
It is my, I say chooser.
I like that, but we usually would say picker. Like, I don't have a good picker. It's about pecker. It's like pecker.
It's too close. And it's the whole nose thing. I'm not picking.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. That's where
I'm
you
choosing.
went. So I think too, along with them being a good picker or chooser, is this is not where you use your gut. Right? This is where there are so many documents, you're signing agreements, it's all laid out. There's no, I mean, you can use your gut for like, does this feel good or does it not? But you're not like, I really like her, so we're going to do this. Like, no, it's very much
you're
like
going
it's drawn
through the
out, you
paper.
become a partner.
Yeah.
But I do think there's going to be more of that.
I already do, because investment, it's like are you trying to buy a duplex or a tri or a quad? Because that's really what most single investors will do. And is the price of those getting out of control to the point to where the cash flows don't work? So can I hitch on to a bigger investor who's buying a bigger property where the cash flows continue to work? And can I own a part of it? And the cool thing is you can own a part of it for the 30 years or indefinitely, or you can own a part of it for a term. Like ours is going to be a 5-year term. So that kind of lets you get into real estate. I want to be a part of this appreciation and the story, but I have $50,000, and $50,000 with 15 to 25% down doesn't really get me what I want as an investment. Yet I could put that $50,000 in a fund that it's going to double in 5 years. Yes.
So if you're doing that, though, that's more like investing in the market instead of investing in real estate, because you're hedging your $50,000 that you're putting into this fund that is buying real estate, and you're going to make a percentage of that $50,000 because you're a partner instead of you owning it outright and getting the appreciation as a whole.
100%. So you're going to get your percentage of the appreciation, and you're going to get the accelerated depreciation. So you're going to get the tax benefits because it's real estate versus putting it in the market. And if you know what the returns are, again, it depends on, are you banking on the stock market or cryptocurrency continuing to go up at the pace it does, or does that volatility make your stomach curl, right? So doing something like this, we know the appreciation story. We know what the rent increases are going to be. There's a little bit more of a certainty around the real estate market, but 100%.
And less investment in, and less risk, per se.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have qualified people that are doing
like
the heavy lifting. You're getting the passive income.
But your big bang is obviously going solo. And
Ownership.
Higher risk. Yeah. Real quick, let's talk about why we can be so confident that housing will continue to go up.
Yes.
So a couple of things.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Denver market first and why it feels like a really safe investment. And this is something I like to speak to. Denver is super diverse when it comes, not its humans, you guys, we have work to do there, but it's super diverse when it comes to our industry. And so diversity in industry creates economic stability.
Agreed.
So that is a big reason. And then also, I mean, I moved here, as I mentioned, from Illinois.
Yeah.
And I don't go to the mountains, but like so many people ski. No, but seriously, so many people are drawn to Denver and the mountains, right? I mean, everyone, it's like, oh, do you ski? And I'm like, no, they're like 2 hours away, and it's like 17 if you're in traffic. But Denver itself, like, is also this thriving city that in the 20 years I've lived here has changed and evolved a lot.
Yep.
And so I think as far as like, if you're worried about Denver, my favorite part of Denver to sell it as a market is its diversity in industry. Would you agree with that?
100%. 100%. I do.
We rarely 100% agree,
Agreed.
which is what makes a great friend, by the way, so that you can go at it a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
1. 2, would you say that the government has an interest in having housing continue to appreciate?
Of course, everybody has an interest
Correct.
in housing to appreciate.
Because housing makes up about 70% of our economy.
Yeah.
So when I got into it, I mean, I was filled with a lot of hope at one point in my life. Oh, this isn't therapy, sorry. You've never had it.
Hope?
I'm just kidding.
Not a robot.
No, I know. I'm teasing you. Oh, now I forgot where I was going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You were talking about the
the
Denver
government.
market.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, it's like any other, like it's supply and demand. It's that simple. And then we all watched what happened, right? And I think that the truth is that I never even recognized, even being in the industry, how much control the government had as far as the Fed rate. And the amount of money, fiscal policy, what they're pumping in. And we saw it with the pandemic, what happens when you pump in trillions of dollars and artificially hold down rates, right? And we are living the repercussions of that. But those are the two tools that the government has to use, and they will continue to use them because it's in the best interest of the greater nation for housing to, one, continue to appreciate steadily, not what we saw for those years. We all didn't like that. The pace at which we were moving was too fast for you guys as consumers. It was too fast. It wasn't great for the agents either, but that's not what I'm complaining about. Making people make that big of a decision that fast was not good. So we're in a cooling off period, but they have the controls they need. And it's the same way when you watch, and I'm being nonpartisan right now, which is rare. I'm trying to learn to be nonpartisan. Is it working?
Yeah.
Ish?
No,
Okay.
go.
I'm nailing it.
Yeah.
My body, my choice. Doesn't seem that complicated. Okay. But the truth is, it's beneficial for our entire society and our entire economy that people are able to move. So when you see threats around tax regulation, or you see all of these things, they wanted to take away this was years ago. This was 8 years ago. They wanted to take away the ability for you to have a cap gains shelter on your primary home.
Got it.
And obviously, we're going to lobby against that. If you have to pay capital gains on the proceeds from your primary home, that is a huge expense to move, right? And that is not what owning your home is supposed to be about. And so they shot it down, and that's been shot down, I think, multiple times. The 1031 exchange, they'll try and take away. They'll talk about it for a while. Ultimately, most of that's going to be spread onto the ultra wealthy, which if any of you are, that's usually defined as over 100, or it's been most recently defined as over 50 units or over $100 million in net worth. And as long as you're just below that, you're good. So if you're like above it, like I've got great ideas of what to do with that money. We've got so many people we can give it to. Is this still nonpartisan? Okay.
You're coming close.
Coming close, yeah. Okay. So anyways, a lot of the scare tactics you see, and we talked about this during the election, and I think we can speak to this because I think it's important. It's still top of mind. What seems like a huge win for one side and a huge loss for another is usually only affecting about 0.5% of people when they talk about fiscal policy. And unfortunately, in the space that we're in and the time that we're in, it's all headlines. So the biggest thing we say is if you see something, bring it to our attention, and we'll help you understand exactly what it means when Joe Biden's going to take away tax benefits for anyone who raises rent more than 5%. So a lot of times the left is like, yeah, he is. And the right's like, yeah. And the truth is it's going to affect only the people who own 100 million or more in assets.
That's right.
So I think that is also, like, as we hopefully can get out of these highs and lows of political seasons, I don't know how we would, but that is something to always consider. Which leads me to one more thing I want to talk about before we close down shop with real estate investing.
Yes.
The $25,000.
Yes.
So one of the big things that the Harris Walls campaign was talking about while on the trail was $25,000 for first-time homebuyers.
Yeah.
Was she saying first-time homebuyers?
It was first-time homebuyers.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't specify the first generation.
Was it in the policy that it was first generation?
There's additional benefits for first generation.
Is what she was proposing? So I am all about everyone getting into home ownership, obviously, if you want to. Right? My big thing is like, it's not if, but when. If it's a goal of yours, we're doing it. We'll figure out a way. If you give everybody who's a first-time home buyer $25,000, guess who wins? The people who already own the homes. Prices just went up $25,000. Also, if you give me $25,000, who I'm not even going to go into privilege of it. I'm not even going to get into the privilege side of it and what equity and equality differences there are. But if you give me $25,000 in Denver and you give my friend in Sacramento $25,000 and you give my sister in my hometown $25,000, that's very different, right? So anything blanket like that doesn't work. Yeah. But it's going to make headlines. Did I foresee it ever getting passed? No.
Well, and it would take years.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But what it does, and this is where my like justice driver comes out, is it stalls a lot of people from making a move because they think after election day that's going to all of a sudden be in their accounts, right? Yeah. And so I think where Nicole and I are constantly educating, and kind of what I want to leave on tonight, is we have grant programs in Colorado that can get you that 25 or more.
We do.
So long as you qualify, depending upon what those qualifications are. First-time home buyers here are typically seen as anyone who hasn't owned a home in 3 years. So that's another thing is you don't have to actually have never bought a home. You just have to have not owned one in 3 years.
Yep.
And they all have different
3 tax years.
qualifiers. But states and even hyper-local governments are dealing with and offering grants like that everywhere. Yeah. And those grants get put through a filter, to your point, right? So I'm coming from a home that I was taught home ownership's normal versus somebody who's never seen that, right? So they haven't benefited. Look at your kids versus you, right?
Right.
The benefit of kids when you for your kids when you own a home is crazy.
Yes.
It's crazy huge. And that's why we get so passionate about making sure everyone knows they have the opportunity and have the information they need to make the decision that's right for them. I started with Nicole telling her story. I told my condo story, which I still love. We'll talk about it. I mean, I would love to talk to you guys all about it. All if those walls could talk, you know what I'm saying? But I took that one condo and I turned it into, I don't know, can you be in charge? 4 or 5, 6, like 6 rentals. I don't know. We did a lot together. Bought a mountain house, sold a mountain house, got a divorce. Those are expensive. So you should definitely own real estate for that or not.
But you didn't keep taking the equity from the condo. I mean, you did a lot of that on your own.
I know, but it's almost paid off now.
Yeah.
But I would borrow against it short term, right?
Yes.
So the HELOC is a great
HELOC
short term
was
option. When you're in a sales position where I pay myself a base plus I make commissions,
Yes.
then a HELOC can be a great option for short term. You don't want to do it long term.
Can I double click on the HELOC?
I would love for you to double click on the HELOC.
Okay, good.
I love that people say that now.
I love that. Anyway, everyone should have a HELOC on their primary home, even if you don't think you need it. Right now, they typically follow the prime rate. The prime rate follows the Fed rate. So as the Fed rate is cutting, as the Fed is cutting the Fed rate, the HELOC rates are going down. Meanwhile, there's a lot of economy and political unrest right now and uncertainty that is still keeping the 30-year fixed higher, but the HELOC rates are going down. They're 2 totally separate interest rates. So if you get a HELOC on your primary home and you just have it, I was just talking to a client earlier today. They want to buy an investment property. I started talking to them about getting a HELOC to tap into their equity to buy that next property. And they were like, oh, we have a HELOC. And I said, great. And we were like, well, it's $40,000 and it's tapped out. Like we've used all $40,000 because we wanted to redo our backyard and our deck and the whole thing. And I said, well, were you capped at $40,000? She goes, no, they told us that we could get a $300,000 HELOC, but 40 was all we needed. I said, so all you got was 40. And she goes, yep, we only got a $40,000 line. They don't explain the fact that get the $300,000 line, unless you're a spender, then don't do it.
Right.
You got to know thyself.
That is a good point to make. Yeah.
But if you are very conscious is what I was trying to say about your spending, if you get the $300,000 line, you only pay the interest on what you use. And then as you pay it back, that interest goes down because the principal of the loan goes down. So it's super flexible. The interest rates are going to continue to get better as the Fed continues to drop the Fed rate. Today, the prime rate is 7.75, and you're talking about a 30-year fixed is above 7% now. So really, it does give you access to that equity at almost the same rate, and it wouldn't surprise me in another 6 months if it was actually below the 30-year fixed.
Oh, it's going to flip?
Yes.
That's happened before.
Yes,
yeah, I would say my uncle, who's is a financial advisor I work with too, and he's in Illinois, and he's very fiscally conservative. And one of the first things he told me was, you can take a HELOC on your primary.
Yes.
And so long as you truly only use it as a rainy day fund, you can consider that, especially as you start getting really a lot of expenses, right? You can consider that part of your rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Because you're not using it for trips. You're not using it for Gap or whatever.
It's an
Gap,
emergency
the
fund.
Gap.
Yeah.
Hello, 90s. Let's talk about the Gap. Like, what? It's coming back. I'm bringing it back single-handedly. I'm not.
It's not.
I'm not bringing it. I don't think Amazon
impossible.
sells it. I'm kidding. We're going to quit it. Cold turkey.
Okay.
Okay. So I think, one, my passion is pebbles in the pond, right? So we talk about money. We need to stop. Everyone, raise your hand if you have a little bit of shame around money, or if you've had shame around money in your life, or if you watched it growing up, right? We all have that. The patriarch.
I'm waiting.
I know.
Where are you going?
Wins when we don't talk about it. So
Who's the patriarch that's winning?
The 1%ers, honey.
Okay.
Yeah, the Christian patriarch specifically.
Okay.
The ones who want to take away the women's rights and then, the whole.
I understand.
So now it's after
Now
hours. Just kidding. But the truth is, the people who hold the wealth don't want us to talk about money. I'll talk about it all day long because I've learned everything as I went. right? I mean, other than I had plenty, my parents talked to me about money, which is another like privilege we talk about, but I've learned it as I went. I've made mistakes. I forget them, but I make them. And we're all just in it together. And the truth is, it has a lot of stability. And so even when you are at times leading with your gut, or if you're analyzing analyst paralysis, ultimately, when you can hold on to it and you can use the tax benefits that our entire country's wealth has been built on, you will be able to benefit from that as well. So the more people that are in it and owning, the better. Do you want to talk at all about the matriarch that I'm bringing up?
I don't.
Okay. Are you ready to be in charge of it?
Not especially.
The matriarch? No?
No.
You kind of are. That's what you're doing.
Okay.
Yep, by educating.
Yes, it's all good.
So the biggest thing we want from you guys is to feel like, one, you can talk to other people about money. Two, have like straight conversations about it. And then most of all, know there's not one path, right? There's not one path. It's as unique as you are. It's as unique as your goals are. And never hesitate to reach out for true facts. It's intentionally intimidating. And it just continues to be that way. And we're trying to be done with that. So you and I can agree on that for sure, 100%.
100%.
100%.
There you go.
So thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. Stay, have a drink, mix, mingle. And we would love requests for what you'd like to talk about in 2025. It can be real estate related or just financial literacy of any kind. I've had a request for estate planning.
I love that topic.
Yeah. So we'll be doing some of that, financial planning. There's all kinds of things that I just want to, I don't want to have qualms about these things. Let's talk about it. Money is merely a vehicle for us to enjoy today and plan a little for tomorrow.
More of it
Landed
is better.
that motherfucking plane.
Yeah, you did.